Hi guys, welcome to 12.2. We're evaluating limits. So thus far we've used direct substitution or direct distribution. And so if we look at it, think of something like this. So we have the limit as x approaches -3 of x squared plus x minus 6 over x plus 3. So when we use direct distribution, we end up with -3 squared plus -3 minus 6 over -3 plus 3. So we end up with 0 over 0. So what to do when direct distribution fails? Well, we have a few ways. So this 0, 0 here, we call this the indeterminate form. We call this that because we can't determine the limit from this form alone. And then if we look at the table, we can see from the table that our limit appears to be 5. Sorry, it appears to be -5, but a table's not always the best way to find the limit when we have the indeterminate form. So when this comes up, we have two ways that we use primarily. The first way we're going to talk about is dividing out, and then our second way is rationalizing. So the first thing we're going to look at is dividing out, and we're going to use the same example that I used at the beginning. Dividing out. So dividing out, it's actually all about factoring. So because we ended up with the indeterminate form of 0, 0, we can conclude. It's a much nicer word than saying assume. Assume means you're not really sure. Conclude means I'm pretty sure. So I usually use assume, conclude. So we can conclude that the numerator and denominator have a common factor. They must have a common factor if they equal 0, 0. So we're going to factor. So again, we start out with the limit as x approaches -3 of x squared plus x minus 6 over x plus 3. So I'm going to factor, and that gives me the limit as x approaches -3 of x plus 3 x minus 2 over x plus 3. So you can see that, let's see, switch pen color real quick. Okay. So you can see that these two, x plus 3, will cancel out. So that leaves us with the limit as x approaches -3 is x minus 2. So now we can use direct distribution again and see that so when we do this, we get -3 minus 2 equals negative 5. So we would say that f of x approaches negative 5 as x approaches negative 3. So this is dividing out. Dividing out, two-step process. Factor, which is what we did here, then use our direct distribution here. Now our second way is rationalizing. And I bet you can't guess what we're going to be doing. So again, let's say that we have to find the limit as x approaches 0 of square root of x plus 1 minus 1 over x. So when we use distribution, we get 0 plus 1 minus 1 over 0. Well, the square root of 1 is 1, so 1 minus 1 is 0. So we end up with the indeterminate form. Now, we're using rationalizing because, as you notice, we don't have any common factors, so we can't factor anything out. So we have to make a change somehow, and the easiest change is to rationalize the numerator. So that means we're going to take the square root of x plus 1, and I'm going to rewrite that real quick so y'all can actually read it. There we go. Minus 1 over x. Now we're going to multiply this by the conjugate. So that means it's going to be the square root of x plus 1. The sign doesn't change because it's under the radical. This, the negative, that's going to be the sign that changes. So there we go. Now, when we multiply our top out, our top is actually the difference of two squares. So that means I'm going to square my first term, gives me x plus 1. My middle terms would cancel. That would be negative square root of x plus 1 plus square root of x plus 1. So those cancel out. And then negative 1 times positive 1 is negative 1. And then my denominator, I'm not actually going to multiply it out. That is usually the last thing I do because I like to see if it helps me in any way. And I can already tell that this will. So as you can see, the 1's equal 0, and then these reduce out. Let's do that because that just looks like a weird X. All right. So that leaves me with 1 over square root of x plus 1 plus 1. Now keep in mind that just because this equals 0, reducing down the x's does not mean your numerator becomes 0. Do not make that mistake. So now we can evaluate the limit as x approaches 0 of 1 over square root of x plus 1 plus 1. So this becomes 1 over square root of 0 plus 1 plus 1, which is 1 over 1 plus 1, which is 1/2. So we would say f of x approaches 1/2 as x approaches 0. Those are our two forms. So dividing out, you factor and then use direct distribution. Then rationalizing. hold on, can't spell. There we go. Rationalizing. Then you rationalize using the conjugate, and then use direct distribution. And this all happens when you so if you got the indeterminate form of 0, 0, these are the two you use. Dividing out, which you factor and use direct distribution, and rationalizing. You rationalize using the conjugate and direct distribution. So that's what we have on tap. Your classwork is going to be page 870. And again, I'm going to rewrite this because apparently I can't write today. Ooh, that was fun. Let's try this again. There we go. 870. 1 through 4, all. And then 5 through 15, odd. All right, guys. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.